نعم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Dear Muslim brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greetings of the people of Al-Jannah, which is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to episode 2 of the parenting series. In this episode, we shall be talking about the impact of parental behavior on development and mindset. So, without wasting much time, we would invite our speaker so that we can hear from our speaker. Our speaker is in the person of Dr. Hajia Asma. We hope to learn so much from her, inshallah. So without any time wasting, we would hand over now to take it from here. But let's remember that if we have questions, we shall call on us to ask our questions. And then also, let's try to put our mics on mute at all times until we are called to speak. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can I get a feedback if you can hear me and you can see my screen?
Wa alaikum salam. We can hear you.
Okay, and my screen visible because I'm sharing my screen. Just want to be sure that you can see my screen, inshallah, so I can. Okay, assalamu alaikum once again. Thank you very much for the introduction. Again, my name is Asma Ayub, and I'm really happy to be on today's discussion on the parenting series. Inshallah, as the topic implies, today we'll be looking at the impact of parental behavior on the child's development and mindset. And to do this, I would hold about a 40-minute presentation with about 5 slides, and then open the floor for interaction, questions, and discussions, inshallah. So the very important question I would like to keep on our minds to start with is, who's a parent and who is a child, and what does it mean that a behavior of a parent could in a way influence a child's development or a child's mindset. This is one thing that I believe today's interaction is all about, and to see how does our behavior as parents, as caretakers, or as guardians can in one way or the other influence the growth and well-being, whether be it physical, be it emotional, psychological, or what have you for the child as they are growing. So to do this, I want us to first look at a few reflecting points. And one saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, there is no gift a parent can give to his child that is better than good manners. I want us to keep this beautiful saying in mind. The second one is by Carl Jung, who's a developmental psychologist, who says children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. So what the grown-up does and not what we say. And the third one by Frederick Douglass is, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. On this reflecting point, what I would like us to really delve into is what is really our impact, or what is our actions and inactions, be it our voice or be it our behavior towards the development and well-being of children. So when we are in the process of training children, how do we influence them? Are they only moved by what we say, or are they moved by what we do? So let's keep this reflecting point as we move along. This is a picture of a beautiful baby with his mother. And this is what the baby is thinking. I'm wondering what my future is looking like. Well, I trust my parents would guide me through this. So help me God. So as congratulations, you're getting all the congratulatory messages. You've just birthed a baby, or you have been gifted to foster care a child or children. You are a parent, so it doesn't really matter whether you biologically birthed that child or you are fostering that child. As long as you have a child under your care and you are fully responsible for that child or children, then you are a parent. And so this discussion affects you. Even if you are an elder sibling, and for some circumstances, your younger siblings are under your care, then that also puts you under the category of a parent. And so while we are excited about the younger ones in our lives, when we are happy to receive and welcome them, or whether it comes with a mixed emotion of feeling frustrated or feeling tired or feeling a bit overwhelmed, what are some of the thoughts that we think are also going through this child's mind? Now, one important thing is what I thought of.
Naam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think we are having some few network challenges. Please bear with us. Dr. Asma, Haja Asma Ayub was talking about the impact of parental behavior on child development and mindset. She started, and one of the things she mentioned, which was very important, is that every child that comes into this world is looking up to the parent. He puts his trust in the parents, hoping that they will give him the proper upbringing. We are hoping that she will join us soon and then continue with the discussions. In the meantime, we would like to hear from you. What are your expectations in this particular program of ours? So you can send it through the chats, inshallah. We shall read them out, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. So if you have any expectations today, you can send them there. And inshallah, we shall read them out, inshallah. And we hope that Hajia will touch on each and every one of these expectations. Jazakumullah khairan.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Ustad.
MashaAllah. So yes, our expectation is to learn from Haja Asma what parents can practically do, conscious steps that they can take to ensure that their children are not negatively affected by their behavior, because there's a lot of stress in the economy and sometimes work and personal issues Now, how do parents insulate their children from these natural tendencies? So these are, I think, some of the points we would, inshallah, hope to hear and learn from Haja Asma, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Ustaz Sharif. Okay, so as we heard from Ustaz Sharif is saying one of the very important things we expect to hear today is that parents, how can parents make conscious effort, or what are some of the conscious steps that parents can take to avoid imparting negative behaviors or attitudes to their children. Jazakumullah khairan. I think we also have Madam Fatuma to CDB, who says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Madam Fat, okay. So Haja Asma is back. We would all mute our microphones and continue listening to her, inshallah.
Yes, so as Haja Asma is setting her screen, I think I can see Hude's hands up and Anike's hands up. So there you can speak if you have something to say before Haja. Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay, I think Malim Aisha was going to say something. Malim Aisha? Okay, so Fatuma CDB writes, she says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please, I would like to know what a parent who did many mistakes in their children's upbringing can do to correct her mistakes. So this is her expectation today. If she's already made the mistakes, what are some of the steps she can do to correct some of these mistakes? So, Jazakumullah khairan. Now I think we are ready.
Okay, I think Haja is back.
Exactly. So let's all mute our microphones and then we listen to Hajja, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.
Naam, assalamu alaikum again. And sorry about that. It's just one of the technical problems we keep having via our networks. So alhamdulillah, I was talking about being a parent, and I was briefly talking about when you have a child and we are all giving the congratulatory messages, and then what could that child be thinking about as people are celebrating, as you have welcomed your baby, or whether it is a biological child or it is a child that is gifted to you to foster care, or you just happen to be an elder sibling that has to take care of your younger siblings. Sometimes the age difference happens that you're almost like a parent, or you're almost like a mother and a father to your younger siblings. And so in those times, that then makes you a parent. And so in this regard, a parent is not only someone that has biologically birthed a child, but then also the fact that you are nurturing or taking care of a child. There are times where they are behavior or and the development of the child. So what I would like us to do here, I was looking at what a baby would usually be thinking of. So this is just a funny view of what the child might be thinking, that I'm just wondering what my future is looking like. But every child, of course, trust their parent or trust their caregivers. And so they're looking forward to learning, they're looking forward to guidance, they're looking forward to training by
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we've had the same issue with the network. We hope that Hajia is able to fix that and get back to us soon, inshallah. In the meantime, we are still hearing from you, your expectations. Either you raise your hand and then we call, or you can send a message through the chat and we shall read it out. Jazakumullah khairan. Hajia was talking about something very important, that a parent may not necessarily be the biological parent of a child, but one who nurtures the child. It could be the foster parent, it could be someone who actually gives care to the child. Because if you are in charge of taking care of a child, your behavior has an impact on that child. Okay. So yes, we are still listening from you all from this side, inshallah. I think Hajia is back.
Sorry about this. Now we are looking at the type of parenting and the 4 different types of parenting styles that we are all aware about, which is the authoritarian, permissive. And so moving forward, what are these 4 categories of parenting styles? And look at this image, and this is what this parent is saying. You do as I say, and you don't question, or you do not ask questions. Now, what kind of a parenting style, when you look at this parent who is almost like a military man or a military woman who says, when I give an order, you cannot refute my order, or you don't even have a voice in my home. Now, these parenting styles, they are usually very strict and very stern, and children have no option than to just do exactly what the parents are looking for or exactly what the parents are saying. And they enforce behavior or behavior change through threats and shaming, or even sometimes through severe punishment. So these authoritarian parents, often they are less warmth because they don't have time for their children. They don't have their, what we can call in our local setup, they are no-nonsense parents. So they are not open up for the children to express their emotions to them. Neither do they care about how their actions or inactions affect their children. What they are only interested in is the fact that as a parent, they have the first say and they have the last say. In between, there is no comment. So these parents are usually, like I mentioned, extremely strict at the children. And they don't care about how the children are looking, how they are feeling, what their emotions are like, whether physically they are okay, they are looking okay. What is it about the academic? If they need children to be academically good, they will use all of the excessive threats, and they would use severe punishment. They would cane, they would flog, they would do all sorts of things to ensure that the children are getting exactly what they want. And if they fail to get the children to do what they want, then that also becomes very problematic. Now, in a recent 2017 research by Pinkwart, you can look forward to more into the research. What he did was he picked 1,400 published studies, and he did a meta-analysis of these studies. And when he did this, what he found out is that harsh control parents who uses excessive strictness and harsh control actually were behavior. And so what it means is that when we sometimes extremely strict on my child, then I would get that he randomly selected into and did this meta-analysis, proved that over 1,000 research actually proved that 1,400 research actually proved that when you are excessively harsh to your children, what they do is they don't become your friends, share information with you, and rather the same behavior you intend to curb actually gets worsened. Now, what is the impact or what is the effect of these kind of parenting style on a child? Usually, when what we tend to see is that these children, they get into relationship, they become very toxic because what they have learned and what they have experienced is harshness. What they have experienced is using punishment or using aggression to get what they need to get, and so those becomes the character they form. And these children, when they are found in schools, are mostly bullies. They bully their colleague because this is what they get every day at home, be it from their parents or from their guardians. And also, one of the major things that parents need to be aware about is that the change they are looking for, they may see it, because you would find children who say, I use the harsh method and it worked because my child at the end of the day saw the bad behavior. But what is important to note here is, yes, the child may stop that bad behavior, but you need to vary the worth of it and the impact of it, and also the behavior. And that change in behavior becomes very temporal. So it is not a permanent change in behavior. They would only, because they are looking at you out of fear, out of fear and intimidation by the parents. They will change behavior because their entire mood, they think about how they can write in. I want to ask. So the second type of parenting that I want us to look at is, this is a child that is really dragging the mother's hair, and then this is what the mother has to see, wondering. And when you look, oh, are you likely to do to the energy? Now, this kind of parents, we would usually find children, so they don't say, I need you to do this, I need you to achieve that. And they are equally very high responsive. So what they do is, whatever the child is looking for, whatever the child is asking for, whatever the child says, I need to get this done, they will do it. I want to have this, mommy or daddy, they get it done immediately. Sometimes they actually get the demand made, they do the supply of the demand even before the request come forth. So they are always open to do any and everything for the child without setting down rules, without setting down boundaries. They are extremely loving, but their love tends to be a very problematic one, because they do it so much so that the child becomes so overwhelmed with it, such that even when the child needs to be told, don't do this, this is wrong, such parents are unable to do that. These are the permissive everything from the child. Now, there is also a very significant impact on these children. One of the problem is, this kind of children grow older to have severe behavioral problems. They have relationship problems because whenever they get married or they are in a relationship, their assumption is that whatever they want must be done by their spouse, and there is no debate about it. So they are almost the complete opposite of authoritarian parents, because where in authoritarian parent, the father or the mother says, this is my voice and your voice doesn't count. In the permissive, it is almost always that the voice that counts is the voice of the child, and then the parents are just accepting of any everything that the child comes up with. And these when they are faced with stressful situations. So when they have to work out an exam, when they don't understand why they failed an exam, they would reach out to whoever it is. They'll reach out to their bosses with very aggressive behavior because they make demand. And then in their world, they have grown. Whatever they demand must be met. And so if it is not met, they would use any and every means available to them to make that. And they are also become very worse at impulsive control because they have been trained to believe that anything they want in life, they must get it. And so if they don't get it, the only alternative is they must get it. So there is no alternative at the end of the day. They must get whatever they are asking for. And on.
Okay, I think Haja is back, but her mic is muted.
All right, so I'm trying to share the screen again. So while I try to share my screen, I'll just keep talking so that, because we don't have so much time. Now, the third type of parenting is the uninvolved parenting. And I have on my screen here, which I'm sharing in a bit, is the kind of parenting that are mostly very neglectful when it comes to their parenting. So they are often not really involved about in part of the process of the well-being of their children or in the training. So they usually would just say, I know you're good, you're on your own and you can take care of yourself. They are happy to let the child be on their own, and they are happy no matter what the time is. It doesn't matter what the risk around their child is. They are okay going out looking for ends meet from morning till night, to the next morning to another night, and they assume that the children, once they can see, they can hear, then the children are old enough. So this kind of parent usually force children to become adults at a very tender age, at a very early age. And their attitude, they kind of play this I don't care attitude that we would use in our local language. Like, I mean, in the Ghanaian jargon, I don't care. So whatever, anything could happen. Now, these children, when they grow with such uninvolved parents, or when they grow under the environment or the atmosphere of uninvolved parenting, they usually tend to have very little emotional involvement with other people. They find it very difficult to hold long-term relationship because they have not learned how to commit. They don't know how to commit friendly relationship. They are also often, they act very emotionally unstable because to them, whatever they need to get is just what they think. So they just think about themselves and they don't have any other person in their mind. Neither do are they able to contain anybody in their emotional tank. They are usually children that are also more likely to be truant, to stay out of school, because anything that demands complete commitment is very difficult for them to uphold. So they don't understand the essence of why should I stay in school? Why should I sit in class? Why should I study? Why should I listen to somebody talking to me? They are often very disrespectful, and to them, it's a normal way of life because they had to survive through that same means. So these children are have very problematic developmental growth. Now, the final one is authoritative parenting, and this parenting is one of the actually the most acceptable, widely acceptable means of parenting that we all aspire to be. Now, these parents, as much as they would listen to a child, they also ensure that the child listens to them. These children would, these parents would make sure that the voice of the child counts as much as their own voice counts. They would hold family meetings. They would hold interactions with their children. They would hold conversations with their children. And they are very responsive to the child's demand in that, be it physical, be it emotional, be it psychological needs, they make sure that they are always there. Even when they are not there physically, they ensure that they are emotionally connected to their children as they're growing, because they understand the impact and they understand that in their absence, there is going to be a space, there is going to be a gap that would be very detrimental to the development and well-being of their children. So these parents always ensure that they close that gap. They make sure that they become the number one fans in the life of their children. They make sure that they provide all that the children need. And in the events where they are unable to, they would always, so the child is able to appreciate that my parents don't have, they cannot afford this, but then at the same time, I know they would walk away and feeling very confident. So that if the impact that this kind of parenting usually have on children is that they are emotionally stable, because their emotional tank has been filled up by their parents. They are so full of love. They are so full of positivity. They develop well, both physically and psychologically. Their social skills and networking is very beautiful. These are also children who have humanity at heart. So you often find them at an older age more into humanitarian work because they appreciate giving back. They appreciate sharing. They are lovable. So you find a lot of friends hanging around them because they are always happy to share whatever they have, whether it is a material thing or it is something that has to do with emotion. These children also under authoritative care are often very assertive and they tend to be more respectful. So in a nutshell, putting all of these parenting styles together is to really help us to look at where do you stand as a parent? Where do you stand as an older sibling? Or where do you stand as a caretaker? Which of these are connected with? Which of these parenting styles would you say is more defining of who you are, or is more defining of what you do, or how you are training? Or you can also kind of try to see which of these 4 different types becomes more parenting. So as I look at those 4 parenting styles, it's for us to really get into a deep reflection of how, really looking at where I started from, how does the character formation of action of a growing child or of the student I'm teaching, whoever, it doesn't matter where you find yourself. So thank you very much for staying with me, and I apologize again for the terrible network that we are having today. All of my 2 different networks just keeps breaking. I'm on 2 different networks, but they keeps breaking, but alhamdulillah. So I would have a open interaction, I believe, from now, so I can respond to questions, and inshallah, I'm hoping that the network stays stable. Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khairan, Hajia. We are really, really very, very grateful for the wonderful presentation you have given us. Hajia, but I have a quick question before we pick other questions. What can you please repeat the last type of parenting, the parenting style, the last type? The
Okay.
authoritative, the permissive, the uninvolved, and then the last one is?
Okay, so the last one is, so I looked at authoritative. So we look at authoritarian, we looked at permissive, we looked at uninvolved, and authoritative.
Okay, thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan. Okay, Haja, please, there's a question that was asked earlier. I think we should start with that question before we then give
was that
opportunity.
Clear?
Yes, it's clear. So there was a question that was asked earlier. I think Madam Fatumata CDB asked that if you as a parent have already made some mistakes in the upbringing of your child because of a method which you used which is wrong, is there a way, how can you then correct some of these mistakes? So that's what she wants to know.
So the question is, when you have made some errors as a parent, how can you correct those errors? Did I get it right? Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so
yes,
what I would
please
say on this is that, yes, we are all learning at school. So you are equally as a parent growing, in that regard. And so as time goes on, yes. So as time goes on, you're likely to do something either based on the fact that your own emotions has influenced that, or perhaps.
Okay, so we are still waiting for Hajia to get back to us. In the meantime, we can send, if we have a question, this is the time where you can raise your hand and ask the question. And then when Hajia gets back, we will let her answer the question, inshallah. Okay, so there's someone saying here in the chat session, Salaam alaikum Hajia, thank you for this informative presentation. My question is, does a specific parenting style condemn a child to a particular personality trait, or other vital factors are involved in a child's psychological development? And she continues, and if so, what are they? Thank you.
Sorry, can you take that question again for me?
Okay, so the question says that, Assalamu alaikum Hajia, thank you for this informative presentation. My question is, does a specific parenting style condemn a child to a particular personality trait, or other vital factors are involved in a child's psychological development? And if so, what are they? Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that question. I think I didn't complete the first one, and so I'll just continue with that, responding to the very first question. So my suggestion on that question is that as a parent, once you have realized your error, it is very important, and this is something that is very challenging to a lot of us as parents. We feel that we are the parents, I'm the mother, I'm the father. How on earth do I have to say sorry to my child? But it's very important to note that when we say sorry to a child, then we are teaching them how to say sorry when they are also wrong. So what I would suggest is that once you have realized your mistake as a parent, call the child and correct that mistake. Speak to the child, share that, you know, this is what I did to you before, but I have just realized that I was wrong. And so as a parent, be able to face the reality, the truth, the hard truth, and say, I was wrong and I want to make amends. What do you think? And say sorry to your child. Let the child be able to say, wow, I'm really happy that mother or father, you're connecting with me again because I have held this deep talk. You'll be surprised what the child may be able to tell you at that moment. So that is just what I would say for the first question. And the second question, which says, does any type of personality condemns a certain personality, is what I understand in this question is whether a kind of parenting style, which is from the 4 parenting style that we've all agreed on, has an influence in the personality of a child yes, if that is my understanding, then yes, it does have an influence. And when I was talking about the effect that it has on the behavior of the child, actually what I'm looking at is whatever the impact of that effect is, then definitely that tempers with the personality of the child. One important thing as caretakers and as parents we need to be aware about is, as the child is growing, they are forming their personality. Part of their personality would come from the genes they inherit from the father and from the mother. Aggressive instincts are mostly inherited on the Y chromosome, so usually coming from the father. Other times it may come from the mother as well. But the tendency to really form the entire personality that will be formed is not solely based on what they are carrying on their gene, but also the kind of socialization they are given. And parenting here is the number one socialization, because the parent is the first school and would forever remain the school that the child will spend most of their time with. Parents are more important than any other person in the life of a child. And parent here, like I said, caretaker, whoever you are, once you're playing the role of a parent, whatever you do to the child is more important than any other person. Because for other people, they hold transactional relationship with them. But for you as the parents, they are not only connected transactionally, but they are connected for life. And so they know that they cannot harm you. So their life is fully dependent on you and your actions and your inactions. So critically, yes, it does affect and influence the child, can really temper with the child's personality. For instance, in a quick example, when a parent who is an authoritarian parent, a parent that is excessively aggressive, a parent that is a no-nonsense taker, a parent who thinks that the voice of the child cannot be counted, for example, happens to be nurturing or training a child that is more of an introvert. Now, this child would swallow in all of their pain. They would never say it out. Possibly they may not even be able to cry out, so nobody pain. What you're doing as a parent is that you are fully tempering with their original personality. Now, in another flip side is that this same parent, an authoritarian, still using the authoritarian parenting example, when they are dealing with a child who is more of an extrovert, and they say you cannot step out of the house. Now, this is a child that possibly may be dealing with ADHD, so they're extremely hyperactive. Such children need to be outdoor more often. They need to be allowed to play more often. They need to, because that's just, they have so much energy that needs to be put out there. So if a parent like this say you can't play, you cannot step out of the house, you can't have friends, what you're doing is that you are fully tempering with the original personality of this child, which is actually extroverted child. So this is just one example of how our style of parenting can fully impact on the personality of a child. And when that happens, you really worry the child and you have forced the child to pick up a character or a behavior that may not be there. So they tend to have a double personality. They would have a face for you as the parent and have a face for the public. So this dual personality, you'll be, if you are a teacher, you might probably by now heard of a situation where a parent would come to school and the teachers are complaining that your child is disruptive, and the parent to say, no, at home she is very disciplined. She doesn't even talk. So the parents are wondering, why are your teachers complaining? And then the teachers are wondering, why does your parent think you're an angel? Actually, the child is having a dual personality. Something is going on wrong at home. It means that we need to investigate the kind of parenting style that the parents are using. It means the child is not being themselves. So once they leave the confinement of the home, they would explore, they would jump about, they would do what they want to do. And then that is where people get to see the real personality of the child. So I hope that answers the question.
Jazakallahu khairan, ya Haja. Okay, so we have another question, but instead of reading the question, I would like the one who wrote the question to actually ask it herself. Muallima Rabiatu Abbas, please unmute your microphone and then go on to ask your question. We would like to hear from the rest of us, so we are giving the opportunity for you to actually ask your question directly. Ma'am Arabiat Abbas, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Sister Asma. And my question is, I wanted to know if it's only parental behavior that affects child's development or mindset, or there are other factors that also affect a child's mindset.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister. So in this context, we are discussing the parenting behavior, but there are so many other factors that also influence. But because of this, the conversation we are holding, that's why my presentation is limited to just the topic. But there are so many other factors. I think as part of my presentation, I actually did mention that the environment, the socialization, the other people that are involved in the life of the child equally influence the child's behavior or the child's mindset, because these people are equally contributing to the growth and the personality of the child. But one thing we need to be aware about is that no matter what the external environment is, the internal environment, which is the parent, which is the home, has the most significant proportion of the influence. And so whatever is happening outside the home, as long as the child is comfortable within the home, as long as the child is happy within the home, or as long as the child is getting the best care and the love within the home, they are able to form the best character that you're looking out for in them. But when the flip side, the outside is carrying the most significant part of the loving, the caring, then the child also happens to fall on that regard, because the tendency of every human being is to feel loved and to feel wanted. So as much as we are looking at how does the parenting behavior influence the child, we can also close our eyes on the impact of the environment. Now, the environment, external environment, refers to any other space that the child can find themselves, whether it is offline, whether it is online. Especially around this time, it's very critical that as parents we pay attention to the online, because a lot of our children are online. They're doing a lot of online studies, and they are holding all of the gadgets that they can get from us as parents. And while they are doing that, they are getting exposed to other friends, they are getting exposed to other people. And so they're listening to other people. So as a parent, it even becomes more critical for us to be fully aware that of the kind of external environment that our children are also getting to know, or the kind of other people in their life. So get to know who are these other people, because yes, whatever they do has an impact, but I would say it's a 70-30, because from the home has to be very strong. So the parents really need to be very strong in doing this, so that whatever is going on outside the home, the child would have already learned how to detoxify that toxic that they may be exposed to, because whatever they may be seeing, whatever toxic they may be exposed to outside, that has the potential of influencing their behavior. If the home has a stronger detoxifier, then that would inshallah be able to really deal with whatever they are facing. And because they will get to tell you anyway that this is what I heard from outside. What do you think about it as my parent as well? I hope this answers the question.
Thank you very much, Haja. Okay, so we are still looking forward to hearing from you. If you have questions, please, this is the time. Questions, comments, all are welcome. Okay. If no one has a question, I have one. I think this is related to what Ustad Sharif said earlier. So sometimes we know there are children who have these negative behaviors. So the question is, how can we then, what are some of the steps we can take to actually address some of the negative behaviors we see in our children?
All right. So when we look at negative behaviors in our children, I think what I would start with is by really us looking at where is that behavior stemming from. So first and foremost, we need to do a lot of prognosis to understand where is this behavior forming from? How did this behavior started? What is the relationship between this behavior and what the child is trying to achieve? You see, all this background information and understanding really helps us as parents to appreciate what is in the mind of the child when they do what they do. Understanding their behavior or even making an attempt to at least understand is very critical in the life of a child. So for us to be able to really appreciate how do we solve it, we don't jump into the God factor of I can do it all as a parent. We need to go into a consultative agreement with the child. Now, this is where it becomes one of our biggest weakness as parents, I would say, that especially as an African parent, we know ourselves. We go through a lot, and so we don't even have time for some of these things. Like, why do I have to understand the behavior? He got it wrong, and so I must punish him. And we see this even in our classrooms. We see this in our schools, in our madrasas. The child does something, we don't appreciate or we don't hold a conversation. We don't even ask, why did you do it? So to start with, I would say, let's do a lot of prognosis and understand why did the child do what they have to do? Why did they do that? And having understand that, you would be surprised and amazed that when you involve a child in the process of designing an intervention, it becomes more impactful and it becomes more effective. Because you allow the child's voice to feel counted, you allow the child who is developing conscience to hit onto his or her conscience by saying, whoa, I didn't know that I was doing the wrong thing. Sometimes they do things for fun, like a child that is just literally jumping in the living room of their parents, and they happen to, unfortunately, hit a glass bottle, which fell down. When you hit that child with anger, which is possibly the first thing you might do, if you are a parent that appreciates the child's behavior, you would probably come back later and say, oh, I think I overreacted or I did the wrong thing. But if you at least look at, did the child do that intentionally? Was it a purposeful thing to break that glass? No, it wasn't. It was an error. It was a mistake. How do you punish somebody for a mistake? We always look at criminals, and sometimes we look at what they do and we ask ourselves, did they really deserve such a sentence? So if you can say this for an outsider, then as a parent, quickly look at yourself. Are you doing the same thing at home as well? Are you doing that with your younger siblings? So in really curbing and correcting behavior, in changing behavior or behavior modification, what I'll say is first understand the behavior. Invite the child in the process of discussing an intervention with the child and see how the child progresses. Give them time to progress. Change doesn't come overnight. If it's a problem that you are finding it difficult to deal with and you have not involved the child yet, time to do that. And time to allow the child to just tell the child, you know what, I want you to stop this, or I need you to really relook at this part of what you're doing. Tell me, are you happy with yourself? Use questions like this and let the child go back into their own conscience. Let them reflect, because they have mind, they have brains, they think, they are not animals. So let's not do all the thinking for them, assuming that they cannot think for themselves. So what I would say is that let's do a lot of consultative interaction with children, make them a part of the process, and really understand why do they do what they do, because when we appreciate why they do what they do, then it helps us in also making a better intervention that will be successful, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, Hajja. Just a follow-up on that particular question. Does it mean that you have to sit your child down, no matter the age of the child, and have this kind of discussion with him? Because some parents will say, look, this child is too young for me to have such a discussion with him. How about that, Hajja?
All right, this is interesting, and we hear this a lot of the time, especially at school. Working in the school environment, some parents with the younger ones would say, "How can I hold such a conversation?" Well, it would interest you to know that you can hold a conversation with a child the very minute they can understand you. So what it means is that even when they can't speak, you can actually hold a communication because they would communicate non-verbally. So how much more when they can speak back at you, when they can respond to you verbally, you can hold a conversation. There is nothing like this conversation is beyond the child. This is one of the reasons why we have avoid having communication with our children. This is one of the reasons why we have think that we can think for them, we are more matured in understanding why they do what they do, and so we want to do what we think is right for them. But it's important that we hold them, we sit with them. Now, one thing in communicating with a child is that you have to speak their language, not your language. So when you have a problem with a child, or when you have an issue you want to discuss with your child, don't speak in a language. What I mean is that don't speak in a way that makes it difficult for the child to appreciate and understand you. Don't say, I hate this, I don't like this, I want this to be done. I don't give orders. When you give orders in the world of a child, you are just an authoritarian. You are just a military man, for example. You are do as I say. You are not listening to them. But when you are holding a conversation with the child, first and foremost, make sure that the child is not seeing you above them. Come to their level. If it means sitting on the floor with them, sitting on a chair with them, that is almost the same level. So they don't have to strain their neck, because when they do that, they are listening to half of what you're saying and actually trashing half of what you're saying. Speak with them in kindness, in a tone that you want them to speak back at you. Very important. The way you speak to a child is the same way they would respond to you. When you are high-pitched and you're speaking with anger, you would find that they are connecting with your emotions. So as you speak, they start to speak back the same way with you. And then you further get angry. Why are you talking back at me? Because you started it anyway. So how you want the child to listen to you, to appreciate you, to understand you, you would have to speak at their level. You would have to speak their language, the language of a child. Speak very simple tenses. What do you think about this behavior, for example? Do you think this is a good behavior? Yes or no? How can we make this behavior better? How do you feel when you do this? Sometimes you even need to understand how they feel when they do what they do. Because if they tell you, I feel happy, it means there's a problem that needs to be resolved. And if they say, I feel bad, but I do it because of this, then hooray, you've gotten why they do it. And so once you are able to eliminate why they do what they do, then you get a behavior change, the new behavior that you're trying to look for. And once you're able to do that, it becomes a permanent change. It's not a temporal thing because of fear of the face of my father, who is a tiger, or the face of my mother, who is a lioness. It doesn't become like that, but they change holistically, because they change even in your absence. They would not do what you don't want them to do, because their conscience lives with them. Let's not forget that as much as we as adults have conscience, children develop their conscience while they're growing. So by the age of 5, they have conscience, they understand right and wrong. So when you need to speak to them, you would find that they feel shy. Even at age 3, when a child does something and you spank them, they would drop their heads. It means that they are ashamed of their behavior. Now, when you see a child do that, that is a very important time to hold a conversation with a child. Immediately sit them down, remind them that I still love you, but I don't love the behavior you put forward. I like you, I do this, say all the nice things, but immediately remind them that, but I don't like what you did, so that they are able to differentiate and decipher between what the parents want and what they do not want. I hope that inshallah this helps.
Jazakallah khairan. We have Madam Bintu Akwete, who is asking a question. She says, Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah for today. My question is, how do we handle tantrums in children? And then there's another question too from Mariam. Madam Mariam, she says, Assalamu alaikum. Please, do we always have to ask them the reason for their actions. So I think these are two questions maybe we can take, and then we hope to hear more from others, inshallah. Okay, so I think we've lost Hajia again, but we can still go on with the questions. If you have a question, you can go on to ask it directly without having to type it. Or if you have any contribution or any comment, we are open to all these. And remember, our link has been shared. If you go to the chat part, you realize that there's a link, a WhatsApp group link has been shared there, where you can also go and have more discussions there, inshallah. And we just want to remind you that the parenting series comes to you every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, we expect to have a session or an episode, inshallah. Okay. Very good. Okay, so we have another question from Dr. BZ. Dr. BZ, if you can hear me, please, you can unmute your microphone and ask your question directly.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
My name is Dr. Hamza Bukhari Zakaria. I was just listening to the conversation, and I was wondering whether, as parents, we should consider children as having agency. There are times when children would want to be treated as though they were taking decisions or behaving in ways that is informed by rational thought. So I was just wondering, and also as parents, we oftentimes imagine that it is our decisions that and our guidance that is very much needed by these kids. That also tends to contribute to how their lives will eventually be shaped. So is there any age bracket within which we should, or we could start thinking that kids also have agency? And also because of variations in intellect. So there are kids who are naturally endowed with very strong cognitive abilities. So I tend to have nieces and nephews of the same age bracket, but of course they have differences in terms of intellect. Now, in dealing with these kids, is there a way of varying the way we relate to them whenever they are in our presence? Is there a certain age limit? I was just thinking about it, and I felt like, well, once we are having this conversation, either the guest could explain to us with her background, or someone can also share their experience to our benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you too very much. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so I think Hajia was in earlier. We really apologize today for the network issues we are having. We hope and pray that it gets better in our subsequent episodes. So yes, as Dr. Bukari Hamza has asked this question. If we have others who have questions, inshallah, you can ask them. We would like to take one or two more questions, and then we'll give opportunity to some others to speak, and then we may call it a day, inshallah. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Tamam.
Now, please, can I make a contribution in relation to what the Dr. Zakari said?
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, so yes, he talked about the fact that different children have different cognitive abilities. But what I think is that as adults, we try to give children what we call freedom within limits. So even though they are young, we can give them the opportunity of choosing within a number of options. So we may have chosen maybe 2 or 3 options, even something as basic as choosing a cloth to wear, okay? Because decision making is something that is very important to every child that is growing up and will play a critical role in their adult life. So learning to make choices even at that young age and to be able to see the consequences and the effects of those choices is very important. So with freedom within limits, you put a number of options, knowing very well as the adult that any of these options that is chosen by the child would not have very dire consequences on the child. So whichever one the child chooses, then you can decide the consequences and the ramifications, you can discuss, but allow that child. So it's like you have reduced the options available. So the child feels like I took the decisions, but somehow you made that option available. And I think this then helps them because the more they practice and see the consequences of their actions and their choices, that then helps them to even build those very good cognitive abilities, even if they may not have had it naturally. The ability to choose and see the consequences with time helps them, and then it helps them to reason better, inshallah. That's what I want to contribute to the submission that he made earlier.
Mudira, thank you very much. We were hoping that you could also help us with some of the questions that have been asked earlier. Like someone asking, please, do we always have to ask them the reason for their actions? So earlier, Hajia was saying that we have to find out from the children why they did what they did. And so this person is asking, should we always do that?
Yes, I believe that it is very important. You see, usually we are quick to assume the reason. I believe that as parents, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where you are so upset about something and very emotional about something, and then later you actually find out the reason why the child did it, and somehow you feel this guilt, okay, in your head. I think that doing the why with children really helps them to reason, okay? You don't want your child's brain to be like someone that you just hit around every time. So you want your child to grow and be someone who can take decisions, sound decisions, inshallah. But as children, you are not giving them that opportunity. When you realize that when you are dealing with some children, even as teachers, you ask the person, oh, why did you, or I don't know. You have children like that who do not have an opinion. Or what do you think about this? Should we do this before we do that? I don't know. These are children who have not been given the opportunity to make choices and to take decisions. When you allow them to do the why, you give them the opportunity to activate their brain cells. And the experts tell us that sometimes by the age of 5 or 6, that's within the early childhood bracket, some of these children, if you do not stimulate the brain cells well, most of them die. And research has actually shown that Sometimes even by the time we go to our graves, we have not even used more than 20% of our brain cells. What it means is that we are underutilizing these brain cells, and going through the why process, even with adults, helps us to activate the brain cells, helps us to mature better, and helps us to reason. Very important. Very, very important, so that they can make sound decisions because they have gone through these reasoning processes over and over again. And it doesn't have to be a big issue. Something very little. I want to wear a pullover as against, okay, why do you want to wear a pullover? Because I like the color. Okay, but the pullover can make you feel hot. This child may be 2 or 3, but still go ahead and do it. And with time, that child would be activating their brain cells and learning how to reason and make good choices, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mudira. Haja, please, we are glad to have you back. There's a question someone has asked that how do we handle tantrums in children? How do we handle tantrums in children?
Okay, thank you very much. And once again, I apologize, even though I am doing all I can. I'm on 2 different networks, and all of them are failing at the same time. Quite surprising. So now handling tantrums, I don't think the very limited time we have can help me to really digest how to do that. But inshallah, let's see how I can respond to that in about 1 or 2 minutes. Dealing with tantrums is not very different from dealing with a behavior in a child that you're not happy about, because as a parent, no parent want to have a child with too much tantrum around them, or no teacher want to have to deal with that, because it can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating for you as the parent or as the adult in the life of the child. But as much as it is frustrating to us, what I want to highlight here is that it's equally frustrating for the child. So that's the point we need to look at. It's like, wow, how? When the child is the one displaying that. But usually, often, children display tantrum because they are unhappy about what is something that is happening with them. It could either be, depending on the age of the child, when they are very young in the preschool age, sometimes it could either be something physical, it could either be something they are uncomfortable on their skin. There are times where it has the kind of fabric that a child would wear may be uncomfortable, but if they are unable to communicate, they are not able to tell you that they are not happy about what is going on, or something is uncomfortable around them. It could either be as a result of a food they ate or something they drank. So it's something that is happening within them internally, but they are unable to really fully express, to tell you, I am uncomfortable or I am experiencing discomfort. So the first way they are able to display that is via tantrums. They would jump, they would yell, they would scream. They're doing everything in order to draw your attention to a discomfort that is happening around them. Underlying factor to this is that when children display tantrums, it means that they are experiencing a discomfort. Whether the discomfort is internalized, whether the discomfort is externalized, it is incumbent on the adult around them to help them figure that out and to help them subsequently get better at it. The children themselves do not enjoy the tantrum. So that is one of the myths that we as adults need to take out of our mind. Oh, leave her, that's how she is. Leave him, that's how he is. Research has proven beyond doubt that when we allow children to keep repeating such negative behaviors, and we often act as we don't care, often act as the kind of parenting style that will fit here will be the uninvolved parenting, we don't care attitude. The child also become reflective of the parenting style we are giving them. So they feel like, okay, then what it means is that I'm on my own. So they start to look out for alternative ways of feeling good, or alternative ways of getting better, or subsequently how they can ease the stress that they are dealing with. Tantrums are a stressor to the child. So for the adults in their life, we should be able to help them figure out, how do you get better? So it boils down back into communicating with the child again and helping them understand. One of the best ways to deal with a child that is experiencing tantrum is to first give them body contact. So hold them if they're doing that. Just give them a body contact, hug them, let them feel a first warmth. You would realize that their first response to it is to start calming down. Now, immediately they are calming down, ask them questions like, what's wrong with you? Now, what is wrong with you? Let me make this clarification. In a Ghanaian context, there's a way we can ask a child what is wrong with you, and the child knows the problem is coming after that. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what? Then the child knows that there's trouble coming. But when you ask in a loving voice, what is wrong with you? Then the child knows that, okay, this parent or my parent is happy to know what is wrong with me, truly, because they are happy to help. So it's just a way, and I'm referring to the second one, not the first one of yelling at the child and asking what is wrong with you, so the child feel like, okay, trouble is coming after that. But actually making the child feel that I want to know what the problem is. I want to see how I can help. Or you can alternatively ask, how may I help you? What do you want? Is this something that you need? Why are you acting this way? Help them to understand that the behavior is negative. And one important thing I would also say is that in helping or in trying to deal with negative behaviors in children, negative behaviors that we are not happy about in children, let's be very mindful how we disassociate the behavior from the child. It's not right to tell a child or to tell an adult or somebody while in the child's presence, oh, this is how she is. It means that you have tagged the child, and the child starts to internalize that tag. They would believe it and they will become it. So when you say, oh, leave her, she's very stupid, excuse my language, then the child feels, okay, I am stupid. If they unfortunately internalize that stupidity, then the child becomes a stupid person and a stupid adult. And then at adult, you are wondering, oh, this is how they've been since childhood. Who caused it? Children are at a state when they are children. It means that we have impact on how to reform and remanage them and remold them. So if we fail and they grow into that bad behavior, then it means that we as the adults in their life are those who have failed. So back to the tantrum is to really understand, first do a body contact to connect with the child so you can help the child to calm down. And once they calm down, help to understand what the problem is. Like I said, it could be physical, it could be internal, or it could be something, another person that may be the reason that is causing them to behave that way. So just make an attempt to understand. And if you are unable to understand as a parent, you can call in additional service. You can invite, whether it is their teacher or somebody who is into childcare, so they can help you to really understand why your child is behaving or putting up those tantrums. So.
Thank you very much, Hadia. We have Madam Aisha Abdullah who has a question. I would like her to ask the question directly. So, Madam Aisha, please, if you can hear me, please unmute your microphone and go ahead to ask your question. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, my question is how do we get to how do we get to understand our children better? How do we get to enter into their minds, like understand them better in order to help them, Thank you.
Okay. Wa alaikum salam. If I heard your question, Sister Aisha, is how do we more connect with our children, or better still, how do we, I think I might have heard, how do we get into their minds? Yeah, that's now the work of the psychologist. And interestingly, every parent is the first point of, is the first psychology in a child's life. So you are more of a para-child psychologist, because it is part of your training is to understand the child, and that's just the work of a child psychologist. So in responding to your question, how to get into the child's mind is really becoming a child yourself. It's as simple as that. Now, when you try to wear the adult gown and you want to be a friend of the child, I'm sorry, you are too big for them. They see you as too much of an adult. You are up there and they are so little. So they are unable to connect with you. Now, literally speaking, when I say be a child yourself or wear the gown of a child and look like a child, what it means is that you have to come to their level. When you are speaking to them, when you're communicating to them, you make sure that your tone of language is child friendly. You do not use harsh words. You don't speak so that they have to strain their neck to look at your face. You come down to your level, either you sit or you play with them. That's why one of the interesting times to get into the world of the child is when they play. Join them in their playful activities. If they are dancing in the room, join them to do the dancing together. Literally saying you're trying to fool with them. It's very interesting, but you would be surprised that these are the best times to really get into the world of your children. Eat with them, play with them, hang around with them, go to the playground with them. There should be times where you let go the kind of food you like, eat what they like, and eat with them. It's part of the sacrificing process. It's part of the way into getting into their hearts. And the moment you are able to unlock that key that connects with them at heart, you win. Because whatever they have to deal with, you are the first point of contact. They speak with you first. They tell you what the problem is first. If somebody is saying something new to them, they would reference you and say, no, this is what I heard from my parent, this is what I heard from my father or my mother, or this is what I have heard from my sibling. They would always reference you as the first point of contact. And once you become that role, you play that role, or you are able to win that slot or spot in the life of your child, then you have won. Because what it means is that in your presence or in your absence, you are the point of reference. And when you know that whatever you're teaching them is the best thing they need, then it means that they are always walking away with the best information. They're walking away with the rightful information. So that's what I can tell you. Come to their level, be a child, wear the gown of a child in order to connect with your children so you can be at par with them, inshallah.
Jazakillah khairan, Hadia. We are very, very grateful for this wonderful and very, very educative presentation of yours. We hope to have you sometime next time to hear more and learn more from you. Jazakillah khairan. May Allah richly bless you. I think this is where we draw our curtains for today. But before we go, let me remind you that our WhatsApp group is still open. The link is there in the chat. You can find it. If you've not joined already, you can join. And then if you have any questions, send them. And inshallah, Hajia will still go on to answer them for you. But before, and then also finally, Hajia, this is a question I have. We would answer it on the WhatsApp. I just want to ask it, and then it will be the first question to be answered on WhatsApp, inshallah. That is, you have parents, the father and the mother. Could their behavior affect the child negatively? So this is the question I would want to ask, and hopefully it will be the first question to be answered on WhatsApp. Jazakumullah khairan. At this point, we would say, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Sallu ala nabiyil kareem.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you to Adia for giving us this wonderful presentation. Okay, so someone is asking if we can have a recording of the session. I think it's been answered. It will be shared via the WhatsApp, inshallah.